please adjust your tinfoil hats because holy hot dogs, there is some weird stuff going on in the northern skies. They tell us it's not aliens, but isn't that exactly what the men in black would say? Over the last few days, the U.S. military has shot down 3 more unidentified objects, one off the northern coast of Alaska, one over Canada, and one over Lake Huron. 2 weeks ago, the Air Force shot down that Chinese spy balloon off the coast of North Carolina after it floated all over these United States. But these 3 new objects seem to be a little different. They look different. They feel different. They're lower in altitude. This video of jet fighters flying over Michigan searching for the Lake Huron object. For one, the White House and the Pentagon not describing the new incidents as balloons. We're told cylinders and octagons might be at play here. We're also told the thing over Canada was the size of a small car. The other difference, they shot them down almost immediately, unlike the initial balloon, but the White House really going out of its way to claim little green men are not involved. Watch.
There is no indication of aliens or extraterrestrial activity with these recent takedowns.
I don't think the American people need to worry about aliens with respect to these craft, period. I don't think there's any more that needs to be said there.
As much as I want it to be aliens, probably isn't. I'll give them that. But the reason people are even saying that is because President Biden has been completely silent on this issue. And as we all know, anytime there's a vacuum of information, anxiety, and confusion, step right in. This is exactly what has happened here. The Biden administration being way too opaque and lawmakers from both sides not happy about it. Watch.
I think the Biden administration needs to provide more transparency.
I have real concerns about why the administration is not being more forthcoming with everything that it knows.
The Department of Defense left me in the dark literally for about 18 hours while I had people all across Montana asking questions about what is going on.
The Biden administration needs to stop briefing Congress through our television sets and actually come and sit down and brief us.
Despite the very real concerns about these so-called objects, the White House couldn't resist an opportunity to brag and diss former President Trump all at the same time. Watch.
We were able to determine that China has a high-altitude balloon program for intelligence collection that's connected to the People's Liberation Army. It was operating during the previous administration, but they did not detect it. We detected it. We tracked it. And we have been carefully studying it to learn as much as we can.
But we don't have any remnants of the other 3 craft we shot down. Why is the White House taking a victory lap when lawmakers are worried we are not prepared for a potential military conflict with Beijing? Watch.
We are not prepared for this, and we've got, to say the B team is probably even accurate. We do not have the A team on the field right now, and it should alarm Americans.
We don't really have adequate radar systems.
They want to get imagery, get intelligence on our military capability. They are preparing for a military conflict.
So is the Biden administration gloating a little too much too soon? Let's break it down with tonight's panel. We've got New York Post columnist and Fox News contributor Miranda Devine is back, along with Democrat strategist, former Biden campaign surrogate. He's in the mood for Valentine's Day. Kevin Walling is here, and the director of the Libertarian Institute and antiwar.com. He's the editorial director there. Scott Horton is back, and a lot of people on Twitter are very excited about that. Miranda, I will start with you. Why haven't we heard from the president? Isn't this a great time for the President of the United States to come out, be straightforward with us, maybe alleviate some of our fears, and tell us what the next steps are and what we know?
Well, that would mean that he would have to be transparent and honest with the American people, which I don't think he is capable of doing at this stage. This entire administration jokingly refers to itself as incredibly transparent, and yet this is a classic example. Their instinct always is to keep the American people in the dark, to distract them, to persuade them that, in fact, rather than being utterly incompetent, that they're really superior to anything that Donald Trump did. It's all about trying to be better than Donald Trump. And so we're seeing, these attempts to say that these balloons, they're nothing, they're no big deal. There's a lot of junk flying around there and up in the sky. And gosh, there were so many of these balloons balloons when Donald Trump was here. None of it is true. The fact is that we have had 4 military takedowns of flying objects in the last 8 days, and we have not been told what they are. And you can bet that they know what they are and where they're from, or otherwise we're in really dire straits. The American people need to be told, and for Karine Jean-Pierre and the rest of them to be standing up there mocking Americans and talking about, oh, don't worry, there are no alien UFOs flying around. What do they expect? There are going to be, in a vacuum that they create of information, there is going to be nonsense filling it in. And anyway, no one actually thinks that these are aliens flying around. They know that it's the Chinese.
I think it could be aliens. I never discount the aliens, Miranda. It's not that I think they're the aliens. I think it could be aliens. But let's talk about that a little bit. You know, I don't think Karine Jean-Pierre is a great messenger here, Kevin, and she does tend to blame members of the press. She does tend to diminish stories because that is what she's sent to do. That's what this administration does. But we don't even have remnants of the 3 other objects they shot out of the sky. We don't know what they are. We should know what they are. I mean, information is powerful, and the fact that we are able to debate it in this country is a really wonderful, beneficial thing. Your thoughts, dear?
Well, Kennedy, I agree that it's important to debate these issues. Certainly, there are more questions than answers. It seems like these last 3 objects are much different than the communist Chinese balloon that was shot out of the sky last week or within the last 10 days. And I think that it was intentional in terms of shooting that down over open waters where we are recovering that. We're recovering the electronics from that and learning more about these capabilities from the Chinese government. But I think it's actually important that it's handled on the staff level, that we heard from Admiral Kirby, that we aren't elevating this to the level. No, I actually don't think we should elevate this. Well, maybe Lloyd Austin should come forward and speak to this issue. Admiral Kirby spoke to that today from the White House podium. But I don't think we elevate this to the level of the president. We don't want the president speaking every time the Chinese send up a satellite.
We don't want him to be worried about anything. We want him to think that everything is just fine and there are no real problems in the world.
He is in command and control of this situation. But let's not elevate this beyond what it is before the American people, that the Chinese Communist government has egg on their face for this whole situation. And now we are learning more about their capabilities. We're shooting whatever is coming into our airspace out of the sky, and that's important.
You know, if I know anything about Scott Horton, he's going to have a different take on this story. Scott, is there anything beneficial about mutual spying, and does that somehow keep the world safer?
Yes, of course. Mutual spying is great. Listen, it was just a couple of years ago that Donald Trump tore up the Open Skies Treaty, which was Ike Eisenhower's idea, and that George H.W. Bush got ratified in 1992, that allowed for overflights between America and Russia and other European states as well. And we can all fly unmanned flights over each other's countries in order to reassure ourselves that the other side is not mobilizing for war. And what we should do, even though our Secretary of State is this worthless scumbag, Antony Blinken, he should be fired and someone else should take charge, get back into that treaty, and invite China to join it too. And they can fly all the unarmed planes over our country they want so that they can be reassured that we're not preparing to attack them. Which, by the way, they have 260-something satellites in space anyway.
Yeah, but that's why people are very curious why they would have this lo-fi technology. So we don't know what the worst case scenario is, but I don't share your rosy view that they're just being a bunch of popular party pals out there, just making sure that everything's hunky-dory. I do think, in a way, they mean us harm. They want to be better than us in every way possible, including militarily and technologically. Does that mean we should start a war with them? No, but I don't think that these objects, balloons, cylinders, octagons, I don't think they necessarily portend peace, and that frightens me a little bit. So, you know, it might be better to bring on the aliens. I'm up for a probe. All right, party panel, please don't go anywhere.
Sign me up.
That's right. It is Valentine's Eve. Hello. The worst part about being a parent is Other parents, you know I'm right. You work your hiney off, making sure your kids are all taken care of and well behaved when you go out in public, while others see any social outing as a vacation from parenting and they let their kids run wild like methed out urchins. If you've ever dined out with little kids, you know the looks you get when you go into a crowded restaurant and couples enjoying date night pre-shame you with the evil eye before your kids even start making fart noises in their Shirley Temples. Unfortunately for well-behaved little angels, their devil-spawned counterparts have forced restaurants to finally make a choice. Let diners eat in peace or indulge thoughtless parents who couldn't be bothered to corral or entertain their children's. Nettie's House of Spaghetti, very popular restaurant in New Jersey, has decided to ban children under 10 because too many entitled moms and dads couldn't be bothered to lock it up and take adult diners into consideration while their kids stunk up the joint. Clumps of half-eaten food stuck to the floor, possessed dervishes mindlessly whirling around servers with trays of hot food, crying spazzes, you name it. Parents who don't give a rip ruin it for other parents and other childless patrons. Sure, my kids are teenagers now, and believe me, they can be their own annoying breed, but I clearly remember the days of furiously trying to wipe up jelly mounds and stray cheesy noodles off the ground in the wake of my messy toddlers. Some people don't care about their family messes and treat servers as personal servants who are lucky to contort themselves catering to the oblivious. It's not just kids under 10 who should be banned from some eateries. You know I'm right about this too. Obviously, family establishments who exist to serve the breeding class will benefit from new constraints at other restaurants. But why stop at banning kids? I would love to have a dining experience free from know-it-alls, loudmouths, nitpickers, a-holes, and table squatters. Why can't they all be gently banned? We have this distorted notion of equality where everyone has to be tolerated and treated as special. Well, we are not special. Sometimes people are just annoying, and we've divorced ourselves from any polite mechanisms that check people at the door before they make a stink and kill the vibe. Kids should not be blamed for being kids, but the more establishments we have to cater to specific needs, with a robust market deciding the best places for those in a family wait to dine, the better off we will all be. Every once in a while, we just need a giant cane to remove us from view when we're being jerk faces. And the biggest jerks of all are parents who can't be bothered to take care of their children as if they're the only ones who deserve a break in public. And that's the memo. The restaurant's announcement went viral almost immediately, and the no-kid policy, it starts next month. Is this good for their business? The party panel is back. Miranda Devine, Kevin Walling, and Scott Horton. I hope you all have some pretty big opinions about this. Miranda, your top-line thoughts, dear.
Well, look, I love your little monologue, and you're absolutely right. It's not the kids, it's the parents. And, you know, we all know that if a child is behaving badly, it's not because there's something intrinsic about the child. Children need attention, they need to be disciplined. If they're running around, it's because their parents are ignoring them and are not disciplining them, teaching them. I mean, going out to a restaurant with your small child is a fantastic learning opportunity for them to socialise them. And that does not mean let them run around and throw food everywhere. That's disgusting. And, you know, in the good old days when social opprobrium used to be allowed, glares and tut-tuts from other parents would shame parents who had unruly children, and they would never show their face again. But entitled parents, bad parents, sloppy, neglectful parents now seem to be getting away with whatever they like. They don't care about their kids, they shouldn't have kids, and they certainly shouldn't be going to restaurants with their kids.
Oh, Miranda, I love it. I love a strong take. So, Kevin, does this make you want to have children?
It does, and it makes me want to keep them home from any of the craziness out there at restaurants like this. You might have some bipartisan agreement with me and Miranda on this panel. We're in total agreement on this front. I think the parents are the problem. We all experience it all the time. Let them go to family establishments. I grew up in New Jersey. I'm excited to get back there and go to Nettie's restaurant. And as you said in your monologue, Kennedy, let the market decide too. I think you're going to see hopefully a lot more patronage of this restaurant based on these new rules.
Do we need more soup Nazis, Scott?
That's funny. Well, my friend Elizabeth here, she knows a restaurant out in California where they have half the restaurant kids are allowed and half the restaurant they're not, and one kitchen in the middle to keep everybody satisfied and keep kids out of everybody's hair. But no, you guys are right about the parents. It's the same thing on the airplanes where, look, there's always going to be a baby crying on the airplane, but you better at least try to calm the baby down. Instead, people just, oh, well, he likes screaming, and so you guys are just going to have to put up with it for the next 2.5 hours.
No, I looked over. There was a child kicking a seat in front of him. Luckily, it wasn't my seat because we would have had some problems. And the mom is sitting there completely oblivious, just like watching a movie with her headset on. La, 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 la. And I'm looking at her like, really? Really, sister? Like, when my kids were little and we flew, I was so nervous that I had a bag of stuff to keep them occupied every single minute because, like Miranda was talking about, the public shame was terrifying. Like, I didn't want to take my kids onto a plane and have people go, oh, but I do think that we should have a-hole free zones. Don't you agree, Scott?
Yes, absolutely. Hey, by the way, speaking of a-hole free zones, we're going to have a great anti-war protest this coming Sunday, the 19th, at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. And Ron Paul, the greatest American who ever lived, and Tulsi Gabbard and Dennis Kucinich are all going to be speaking, and it's going to be really great.
All right, so if you're in D.C., stop by for the anti-war protest. But let's
RageAgainstWar.com to find out more.
RageAgainstWar.com. Speaking of brainless, irresponsible children, the president's son could be in deep yogurt. New emails show the Secret Service may have protected the Biden family during Hunter's 2018 gun fiasco. That's when Hunter's girlfriend, also his dead brother's widow, reportedly ditched his .38 caliber handgun in a grocery store trash can. How responsible. At the time, the Bidens were not receiving Secret Service protection. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer calls the whole thing bizarre. Watch.
There are numerous instances where the Secret Service always showed up to try to help Hunter Biden. It's bizarre, and this is another set of questions that Joe Biden needs to come forward and be transparent, not just with the American people, but especially with the House Oversight Committee, because we have a major investigation here, and the Secret Service are now a part of it.
All right, we'll talk about strange bedfellows. Why would the Secret Service protect Hunter back in 2018? Maybe I should ask the woman who wrote the book on it, Miranda Devine.
Well, look, in one instance to do with a hotel in LA, there were two people that have been described as Secret Service agents. In fact, one of them had just retired and one had retired sometime earlier and had been part of Joe Biden's vice presidential detail. So I think we get some clues from the laptop into how Joe Biden sort of cemented these loyalties from the Secret Service agents who worked for him. He got their children into, military colleges or universities that they wanted. He did favours, the kind of favours that someone in power is able to do. And at one point, one of these Secret Service agents was actually paid, well, supposedly paid, wasn't paid actually, sent a bill for his services to Jim Biden and Hunter Biden, which hadn't been paid for several months. So perhaps there was some former Secret Service agents posing as current Secret Service agents. They do have badges that are supposed to be different but might look similar. That might explain the discrepancy between the Secret Service swearing blind that nobody in their service went to that gun store and tried to take away the paperwork that showed that Hunter Biden had actually lied on his background check form when he said that he didn't take drugs. Now, that's a big problem for Hunter Biden criminally. People have gone to jail for that. So if anything is ever done about it, it would be a problem for him. And so that's why they'd want to get rid of it. Otherwise, there is some deep corruption going on in the Secret Service because they have denied this. And if they were somehow helping the president, or if the former vice president, then that would be very wrong.
So are there people who get special protection, Scott?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Glenn Greenwald wrote a book about 10 years ago about the just absolutely two-tiered justice system where the very rich and government employees have a whole separate system of law for them. And we should specify here, guns and drugs, possession, these are just offenses, right? There's no real crime here, as detestable as Hunter is and whatever business dealings he may have done. But on this, these are just offenses. But us regular people, mundanes, as the great Will Grigg used to call us, people go to prison for decades sometimes over the combination of possession of guns and drugs.
Yes.
And remember, John McCain's wife had this elaborate scheme to get prescription pain pills. And, you know, they're regular people. Some guy's mom right now is doing 20 years in the penitentiary for that same kind of thing. That kind of law would never apply to Cindy McCain the way she and her family and the Bidens and people like that apply these laws to us.
I don't know. You don't be too hard on Cindy McCain. She's a good person and has dedicated a lot of her life to the service of others, especially those less fortunate. And she has spoken out
because she wasn't locked in prison.
Quite coherently about her own issues with drug addiction and overcoming that. So I'm going to give her a little bit more credit than that. But Kevin, we should all be...
She had an opportunity because she wasn't locked up, because she was a senator's wife.
Well, perhaps. But now she's not. She's a widow. So, Kevin, there certainly are two tiers of justice in this country, and it would be nice for a lot of normies to have that sort of intercession, but we don't get to enjoy those benefits.
We are absolutely in agreement that there are two tiers of justice in this system. I think, you know, James Comer, if he wants to, can subpoena the Secret Service. It's a government agency, and I hope there's oversight, and that's Congress's role. But seemingly, I think James Comer is over his skis quite a bit on this stuff. He's publishing reports from Judicial Watch about these emails. I take anything from Judicial Watch with a huge grain of salt, as most Americans should. Again, subpoena the records if they're there. The Secret Service denied that this ever took place.
Judicial Watch, in their defense, do file a lot of FOIA requests.
Yeah, but that wasn't part of a FOIA request.
That oftentimes
there's no FOIA request as part of this.
FOIA request.
That's not what these emails came from. Was a FOIA request? Absolutely not.
Yes, they are.
Miranda, no, not with this specific incident, with these agents going back and forth.
Yes, they are. It's a FOIA request that Judicial Watch just received. The emails between various Secret Service members talking about this incident, sending each other clips from the media about it, and saying, oh, so we're doing favours now.
Oh.
That's exactly what this is.
The plot thickens, the yogurt is
They would
deep.
have mentioned that in all of the news reporting, Miranda, and they haven't in any of the news reporting that I've seen.
New
That's a
York
FOIA
slimes,
request.
the failing New York slimes.
Just go to Judicial Watch website.
Okay, I'm going to during the break
Let's
because we have to get to it right now. Party panel, thank you so much. Miranda, Kevin, and Scott.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kennedy.